I'd like to show you another interesting fourness. It's rather one of the stranger ones. It begins with the question of making a map on a map. I don't know whether you've heard about this as a paradox. It's a famous paradox. Bertrand Russell talked about it. You start out making a map of England or a map of London on one city block of London. Well, you've got everything on this map, but until you come to the block itself, then you have to have on the map a picture of the block that you're making the map on, so that everything on the map has to be done over again and much smaller. Or you could think of the girl on the cracker box, but maybe the map, let's say that's England and this is, or London, and this is the block that you're making the map on, and there's some features here, well those must be there. But when you get to making the block, then you have to have a little block, and then in that block you have a still littler block, and this goes on and on forever. And it's supposed to be an eternal regression, a paradox, and so forth. And I thought about it a lot. And what I came up with was that there's a difference in time. You see, you say, here is London, and that's the way things are. And then you start to make a map of that. Well, you're beginning to put new stuff in, so it's in different time, and essentially that new map is displaced from this. You could think of it as lifted off, but you'll see why I've moved it up. In other words, it's not on the same plane. It's in a different time. And the next one would be the map of the map would be displaced again. And if you think of this as an eternal regression, you'd get a whole sequence of these things going on and on and on. I haven't done this very well, but you can see that there'd be a long string of them. Now, then if you look at that string and see, well, what is it that distinguishes the different ones, you would have to admit that they get finer and finer. The texture gets finer, because in order to map the map, you have to have a finer texture. You can carry that back and map the whole thing with a finer texture, but in any case, you're using a finer texture as you move along this sequence. Now, there's going to be a limit to the fineness of the texture. In the case of this TV that we're taking now, the resolution power of the TV will come to an end somewhere. The human eye also has a resolving power, and the limit of that is better than the TV. I think it's something like 10 times better than the TV. But it's still a limit. That means not that these squares get smaller and smaller and smaller, necessarily, but that this whole thing gets as large as it can be for you to look at it. And the largest it can be is to fill a whole circle. It can't be more than a circle. So that if I were really to draw these things correctly, I would draw them the other way around. That is, this is fairly small, and this gets larger, and the next one larger, until finally you fill the whole field of view with the map. It's as big as you can go with the map. That would be the ultimate map that completely filled the field of view and exhausted the resolving power. Well, if that's the case, then you could talk about something at the center, which would be the eye, which would be looking at this map. Get the map mixed up with the eye. But the eye is at the center looking at all these maps, and the maps don't go on forever, they go to the eye. So the point ends the sequence. So what happened? We started out, we made a map. That was a two-dimensional display. Then we made another map, and another map, and another map, and another map. Well, thinking of all those maps together, we got a one-dimensional array of maps. And that led to the final end of the eye, so that the sequence becomes two-dimensional map, one-dimensional array, improving in value, finally to the point that's looking at it. Now that's almost like our four types, or four levels. Where's the fourth level? You see, the physical object. Well, that's London or England that you started with. You began by making a map of London.